We should defund the police because of the legacy of violence of the police. They have taken the lives of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, which people have taken to the streets to protest. For example, George Floyd was murdered by a police officer in Minneapolis, Minnesota, during the arrest after the store owner has suspected that he was using a counterfeit fee $20 bill. Breonna Taylor was a 26 African-American woman who was shot in her apartment on March 13, 2020. Detective Miles, one of the officers who shot Miss Taylor. For all the deaths of these people, they have died for something that they did not commit or do. Compared to a white person, they would not be killed if they're in the same position. Adding that the police know what they are doing because their job is to protect people if they committed a crime, not to murder them straight away if they have been suspected for a crime. Human contributions to police brutality are at their worst. Unlawful force by police can result in people being deprived of their right to life. If people force is unnecessary or excessive, it may also amount to torture or ill treatment. The term police brutality is referring to various human rights violations by police. They include beating, racial abuse, unlawful killing, torture, or the use of control agents at protests. Police violence isn't just happening in the United States, it's happening all over the world. For example, during a protest in Iraq in November 2019, police shot and killed hundreds of people with no hesitation, including 23 children. In the Philippines, people have said that the police were shooting poor people that have been suspected of selling drugs when they were on the ground begging for mercy. Another example is that in Brazil, officers kill people who pose no threat, mostly young black men, in the safe of knowledge. These killings are rarely investigated or prosecuted. Under international law, police officers should ever use lethal force as last resort. This means such as force is strictly necessary to protect themselves or others from threat of death or serious injury.
Something that happens due to defunding the police is that people would get mad at the police for certain things like racism. And just for that, African Americans want to defund the police. They actually have the right to do that, but if it continues, people will still fight for their rights and would support defunding the polices. Defunding the police is a great idea because it will help support the homeless shelters and people with health disabilities. Defunding the police would reduce violence against people of color and overall crime. More police on the streets are being used to control African Americans. They rather do that than solving crimes. This is why the New York State Supreme Court ruled to stop this, and no-knock warrants and chokeholds should follow this pattern. The defund movement is not just about divesting from traditional law enforcement. On the other hand, Democrats have become so scared of the slogan over the past year. It's worth revisiting the question of whether the term carries more costs than benefits for the criminal justice reform movement. Something we could do is protest until they agree to the defunding policy. We can hold police departments responsible for racism and for treating people horribly. Police officers are asked to complete the paperwork in online forms even if they don't want to, which is something that can be the problem because it would be over with when the papers are all signed. We can train for a professional performance, meaning the police will train often and not just once a week. As I said in the article, it will go from professional communication skills to hands-on control. Many police administrators will tell you they can't afford more time in the mat room and on the range, but more than ever, they can't afford to train officers. What people could do to help alleviate the problem is demilitarize the police and end mass surveillance because it requires law enforcement agencies to disclose and justify the need and cost of any military equipment they own to demilitarize the police and end the mass surveillance. The defunding of the police movement has not just resulted in smaller police budgets, it has also happened in lower police morals, leading to a wave of police budgets. Now the police departments are worried about having enough officers to keep